y'all. Welcome to the Honest to Goodness podcast,
where we give you our honest opinions
on good entertainment.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Kerri.
I'm Nicole.
And without further ado,
here's today's episode.
We hope you enjoy.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Honest to Goodness podcast, where we give you our honest opinions on good entertainment. I'm your host, Kerri, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Morgan and Nicole. And if you can't tell, we're looking a little festive over here. Nicole, I can see you have your Christmas tree in the background there.
Yep. And more Christmas trees back
there.
Yeah.
We didn't even see those.
Yeah.
Cute.
Thanks.
Oh man. But yes, we are here to cover what has been, I think it's safe to say, one of our favorite Christmas movies that Hallmark has probably ever done. Like, honestly, this one was so good.
Absolutely.
Which was Ghosts of Christmas Always. So good. So good. Okay, was it just me, or did this one have a lot of twists and turns that you did not see coming? Like, this one felt like a more in-depth plot than a lot of them. Like, you would, for me anyway, I thought I had it figured out, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, that's not what they're going with. Okay, that makes sense. And then I thought I had it figured out again, and then I'm like, wait, what? You know,
right?
And,
yeah.
Because I know all of us. That's one of our favorite things about Hallmark movies is because of them being so predictable and seeing if we're right about the storyline. And like one of the best parts is whenever we are wrong.
Yeah,
like, you know, because that's probably one of my favorite things is whenever they shock me, because it is rare. It's rare that they shock us with something, especially like this. But I knew coming in that this was going to be a totally different story that Hallmark's had ever done. Yeah. Because when you do the past, the present, and the future storyline with the ghost and all that, especially with, you know, Scrooged and all of that, you know, it always seems like you can only go one way with it, but you can't. Like, they totally did this so great. All the like how they centered it around as being like, you know, obviously we find out that they died in their previous life and all that kind of stuff, and they were reincarnated into ghosts to kind of do the whole past, present, and future thing and everything. But the fact that they had like the whole unknown section and stuff, when they first introduced that, I'm like, okay, someone is going to go through that door, and it's going to be so cool to find out what is behind that door. But I definitely did not see anything like that. Like, this movie totally reimagines the whole thing about soulmates and when it's your time and what your future really is going to hold. Like, it totally like flabbergasted me at the end, because I was like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I love how the movie just kind of starts out with a bang. Like, seriously, it starts out with the Scrooging of Susan Crane. And like, we see the close-up of her face.
Right?
Yeah. It was a slow introduction. It was just like, you're there.
I like how she says, you have got to be kidding me. Ghost? Catherine, it's exciting, right? And then, you know, we meet Arlene and Roy, and then a few seconds later, Susan says, and I am calling the cops. And Arlene says, they won't be able to see us, so that could be awkward. And then Catherine turns her phone into the tissue box.
I mean, you're going to need those.
And like her coming out of her door, just like screaming, Merry Christmas, and everything like that. It was like so funny.
Also,
I love when she was like, wait, you know, this can't be Christmas Eve. Or, you know, like, isn't this supposed to be on Christmas Eve? And Roy says, used to, but it didn't leave people enough time to buy a Christmas goose, save a family, make things right. So they moved it up to the 23rd. I'm so matter of fact.
Yeah. I also love when Susan says, this isn't happening. And then Arlene says, but it is.
He was amazing throughout this entire
she really was
movie. Like, I love her so much. And I love how whenever they and I find it so interesting, like they even had this big thing where they were like trying to tell her, like, just be careful, and she's like, why? No one's gonna see me. And then like literally 5 seconds later she goes in and he spots her, and she's like,
Yeah, you.
"You're talking to me? I'm supposed to be invisible. You're not."
I love that scene.
Yes. Oh man, I love when he's like, "You look familiar. Do we know?" No.
No way. And I love,
She-
like, obviously she was pointing out the fact that she had been there whenever it was
Mhm.
actually open and people were coming in, and he's like,
Mhm.
that was more than like
He's
30
like,
years
"This
ago.
is
or
close since
what."
before I've been born."
Right. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, and he's like, "Oh, you're probably thinking whenever they did this or whatever." And she's like, "Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking."
Yeah.
They're trying so hard to cover her tracks.
Yeah. And it'll come up later, but we see her find an engraving on the wall of
Yeah.
her name and then someone else. I think it said
Yeah.
Bets, which
Bets and Cat.
Yeah, it's that.
Betsy.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Another thing that's funny is when they're talking to Susan, and she's like, "I read the book," like she's like, "I know what's supposed to
Mhm.
happen here. I read the book." And Arlene says, "You're telling me you read the book but forgot the part about Christmas spirits?" Like,
And that's kind of a nod towards later in the movie whenever he's talking about all the books and the movies he's watched and all this. And I love whenever he made the comment about how in one of the movie remakes, they actually kill Scrooge. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that to mean. I don't know what that means.
He mentions the Bill Murray one, and then he mentions
Carrie
the
Fisher.
Carrie Fisher. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love when he's like, when they're all singing at the end because Scrooge is dead, which is really dark now that I think about it. And
Yes.
his whole like just rattling on right there is hilarious.
Yeah.
It really is. But I feel like all of us probably react that way because we're like, trying to process it our own selves.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine myself like doing that exact thing, like doing all the pacing, the talking to myself, and like going through the list of things that I'm like, okay, hold on, pause,
Yeah.
time out, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, this is not happening right now.
Yeah.
But I was shocked that they never mentioned the Jim Carrey version. Because like the Jim Carrey version is really good. But
I don't think I have. Well, aside from the like Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, whatever it is, version, I'm not sure that I have ever actually watched a version of A Christmas Carol because that movie gave me nightmares for 2 weeks when I was a
my
kid.
goodness.
Yeah.
I've seen
I-
one of them. I can't
Both-
remember which
both
one.
of those versions, yeah. Sorry, Nicole.
It's all right.
What were you saying?
I was just saying I've seen one of those versions of A Christmas Carol. I just can't remember which one.
So, Jim Carrey's was technically animated, but it was a lot more realistically animated than it
Mhm.
was the cartoon type animation.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, the Mickey Mouse one. I have to say, like both of those versions gave me nightmares, even the Mickey Mouse one. So I was like, I totally agree with you. Like it's not like I would definitely not show my nieces and nephews this movie until they were like at least 15.
Yeah. It might have been the old version, like the old version that
Probably.
I've seen.
I will say, like, I never really cared anything for the story of A Christmas Carol. I always thought it was creepy. Obviously, the only exposure I'd had to it gave me nightmares for 2 weeks. So obviously, I didn't have a great opinion of it, But I will say the movie that actually kind of made me interested in it and look at it in a different way. If you've never watched The Man Who Invented Christmas, it is so good. But it's actually
I've
like
never
the story
seen it. No.
of Charles Dickens and
Yeah.
comes to write A Christmas Carol. So
Yeah.
it kind of gives you the back, which of course us being the behind the scenes geeks that we are, So for me, watching that, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it kind of gave me a different viewpoint on the story. So
Yeah, I definitely need to watch that movie because I love that kind of stuff where they kind of explain how they got to this point or whatever. But
mhm.
but in the movie, he is right. The first ghost that visits Scrooge, that was totally added into the story after Dickens had passed away, I think. Like he had I don't think he put that in his thing.
His
he
original
wrote it. Yeah,
manuscript.
I don't think it's in his writings at all. I could be wrong because I haven't really watched it. I haven't really read it, but I was like kind of watching it. I'm like, it would kind of make sense for them not to have the first ghost because the first ghost is supposed to be someone that's close to you that has died or whatever. Which I guess they could have, like, for this story, they could have gotten his grandfather or his grandmother. Not sure who they would have used for Susan, but seeing as this isn't really her story, you
Right.
know, they could have easily skipped over that. But I kind of thought that was kind of cool because the scariest part to me was the first ghost.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie was fine. It was the first ghost coming in there in chains and stuff and like looking all drowned and everything because he drowned and like all of that.
No, I'm with Peter. The part that terrified me the most was the whole graveyard thing.
Yeah.
So I guess
That was kind of
future
good. I will say, I don't know if you've ever watched the show, or I don't know if y'all have ever watched this show or heard of it, but there's an episode of the show from the 70s, WKRP in Cincinnati, it's a Christmas episode, and it's basically a take on A Christmas Carol. And I think that Mr. Carlson is the one that is like being Scrooged, I guess, is what.
Oh wow. I did think
It's
it was
hilarious.
really cute. I did think it was really cute in this movie that she says basically that Dickens was the first one to ever get Scrooged and that he wrote A Christmas Carol based off his experience and then just kind of, fictionalized it a little bit, but I just thought it was funny that's kind of their version of what happened. You mentioned the door to the great unknown in that, and I loved the conversation between, so in this movie we have Catherine, who is the ghost of Christmas present. Arlene is the ghost of Christmas past. And Roy is the ghost of Christmas future. And they all work together as a little team, and once a year they are given an assignment to go Scrooge someone and restore their Christmas spirit. So it starts off with them Scrooging Susan Crane, the singer. And so when they come back from that, they are looking at this door, and Catherine says, "How would you ever know that this is the moment to walk through that door?" And Roy says, "They say you just know." She said, "But it's unknowable." Says so right there. Unless, wait, what do you know about the unknown that I don't know?
No.
He says, "Only this, that for a ghost to pass through, they must first know where they want to go.
Yeah.
So at that moment in the script, she's going to be finding out where she wants to go.
Yeah.
I have to mention, just back to when Peter first meets all three of them, I like how he says, "Wait a minute, it's nearly Christmas. There are three of you. Roy, oh, you get it."
I will say, I should have known, but it's like I kept going through this battle. Like, she obviously can't like come back to life. She's a ghost. She died. You know what I mean? So I kept like going through the thing through the whole movie. Like, is it possible for her to like come back? I mean, I know it's been like over practically a century since she passed away, and like obviously the number of people that would know her are pretty much gone, or they are in nursing homes and they'll never actually see her. But I kept kind of going through that. I'm like, I wonder if it is possible. And plus, there was always like, there's the scene not long after they meet Peter and stuff like that, where she starts kind of unraveling his family tree and finds out that his grandmother passed away at a young age. And obviously I tacked on that. I'm like, I feel like it's a little bit too much of a giveaway. But
yeah, was I the only one that thought at that point? So this is a twist that I had. At that point, I thought, because when I think she finds that out. No, I'm mixing scenes. But when they, so she finds out that Peter's grandmother passed away when he was young. But that would have still made his grandmother older than what Catherine is now. But I didn't really catch that at the time. So if that had
Yeah,
been
I didn't
Catherine,
either.
she would have been older.
I thought he said that she had died at a young age.
No,
When I
that
first
she died
watched
when
it,
he
and I
was
had to
young.
rewatch it. I had to rewatch
Yeah.
it because whenever I read that, I just went out. We were obviously still watching the movie, so I didn't really I couldn't rewatch it then, but I rewatched it obviously before we came back on here, and that's when I caught on to it. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. But yeah.
But then when they go to Catherine's past, and Arlene tells them it's also Peter. At that point, I'm thinking Catherine is Peter's grandmother, but I'm thinking this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because there's too much attraction between the two of them for that to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, for Hallmark, I don't even think that twisted. But
yeah, I would hope not. I would hope not. And plus, that would completely change his future for her to like come back and be together with him even too, because like wouldn't they have to pretty much erase that whole situation?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah,
that's a little bit too much because like obviously he can't be her grandmother and then like obviously like move her like because this is pretty much changing, like this is almost like time travel if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because like you're taking someone out of their time and putting them somewhere else, even though she died. That changed. But like if she was his his grandmother, you know, that would be a lot. Yeah.
Another funny moment, it's before they go back to Hartford. Well, it's before they go to Hartford the first time, you know, after Catherine has already seen Peter once. And Catherine walks up and she says, "What are you guys talking about? What are you talking about? What? I just got here. Wait, are you two like cahooting?" No. No one's cahooting.
Yeah. Oh man, there were so many good little one-liners and comedy moments in this. I love when Arlene's like, "What do you think? We died yesterday?" Like most people would say, we were born yesterday.
Yeah. But I love that because like the Ghost of Christmas Future was always kind of like that steady thing throughout the movie because I was like waiting for him to have his turn. And so I'm like, obviously it has not ended yet. Obviously that's not the end of it because he hasn't done his job. And if he doesn't do his part of the job, it's not actually complete. And so like, because they did say, well, sometimes it does come, it resolves itself pretty early on, but I still don't feel like he doesn't go without doing something on his end. And so like, whenever he was having that conversation where she's like, "Are you two cahooting?" You could tell on his face that not only he knew what the past was going to be or the present was going to be, but obviously he knew the future too. And so he and like he says, you know, all is well. So you know, he was kind of like my guiding course throughout the movie because I'm like, okay, until he does his thing, this is not the end of it.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed was we saw Peter's past, which I thought was so cute. Like when they show up at
the carousel.
When they show up at Peter's house.
Yeah.
For the first time. And of course, Catherine is hiding.
Oh, yeah.
Behind the tree, you know, and she's like, "Hi," you know, and she's like, "Okay, then what tell y'all this all year?"
Like they're so shocked. What?
I love how she's like, "Okay, but what to tell y'all this all year, but last year," you know, and Roy looks at Arlene, he's like, "Did you know?" "Of course I knew."
I love how they act shocked at first, like what's going on? Like how what? And then like it got like they almost like they were trying to disguise the fact that they already knew. And then they kind of tell her like, "Yeah, we knew. Obviously we knew. Hello, you're talking to the past and the present and the future. You're talking to the past and the future right here. We kind of had to do our jobs together, so we obviously know."
Yeah. But I love that she's like, there has to be something wrong with people are not supposed to see us. So there has to be something wrong with you that you could see me. And there has to be something really wrong with you because you were me.
And it's just like, but there's not necessarily nothing wrong with you. I'm just saying there's something wrong here.
Yeah. But then when he's
Yeah.
wanting her to come with him on the journey to his past, which of course they never do. They work alone. Arlene would
Yeah.
have her time, Catherine would have her time, Roy would have
Mhm.
his time. And Peter makes the argument that Catherine has already been in his past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, they can't argue with that logic. So,
Yeah.
she goes along. Of course, Arlene tells her, but not a peep, So,
Oh, but she peeped.
yeah,
a lot.
obviously, yeah.
Oh my
But
gosh.
Arlene was so done with her throughout that whole trip. She's like, oh my God, I'm ready to slap duct tape on your mouth. Shut up.
Yeah. Of course, we learned through Peter's whole little rambling that the version of A Christmas Carol with Bill Murray is his favorite.
It's his favorite.
Yeah.
But I also love when he's like trying to figure out, he's like, why are you here? Like, and he's trying to figure it out, and he's like, wait, my
Mhm.
parents split up. There's something I should have done. Was it my fault? My therapist always said it wasn't my fault, but I always felt like, and he's like, well, is that it? And Arlene's like, come on, you strange, guilty thing.
Yeah.
I love that. Mom laughed so hard at that.
Arlene had like some of the best
Best
lines.
liners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, she really did. But I love, obviously, the first place they go is the Frog Hollow Angel.
Mhm.
And, we're seeing Peter because they don't know why they're there.
Yeah.
Right. At this point in the story, none of the ghosts seem to know why they are ghosting him or why they are Scrooging him. Sorry.
Mhm.
And so they're trying to figure this out, and they're going back through his life, and all they're seeing is that he is this sweet, generous kid that
Who
takes
loves
after-
Christmas, who loves his family, who has all of these, really good memories involving Christmas. Like he never had like
Yeah.
necessarily a bad memory of Christmas, only involving around his dad was
Yeah.
on his parts, and that wasn't really even on him. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't doing the things that were making everything be upset around their relationship. So
Mhm.
like it stumped them even more. And they even said it whenever everything was first going, they were even saying like, man, it sounds like we need to be Scrooging the dad, not the son.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because like of how he was acting, not only towards his son, but to Christmas and even his dad. His dad.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we see them go to the carousel on Christmas Day, and Peter
love
says
that.
that that's the only day of the year that his dad didn't work. And then, he gets a phone call from work and he has to go back. And, Peter's mom is like, can't you just stay and ride the carousel? And of course, no, he leaves.
Or, yeah. Or
This
doesn't
just
take a
doesn't take
holiday.
a holiday.
Yeah.
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 And I feel like this also kind of like you can see it all throughout the entire movie. Like he's constantly defending his dad, constantly
Mhm.
saying like, my dad's not a bad guy. He just, he's really adamant about his work and making sure things, all like constantly defending him throughout the movie. But whenever you actually see them together, especially whenever everything's kind of more in the present, like the more present him, Peter, they butt heads. They actually fight. They actually kind of like are getting in arguments.
Yeah.
And so it kind of almost is like, where it's kind of different whenever like it's okay for him to get mad at his dad or for him to have like this warped sense of look at his dad or get mad at his dad or see his dad as a bad guy. But he doesn't want other people to see that his dad is a bad guy.
And that is true love.
Yeah.
Right there. It's like, I mean, we do this with our siblings, with anybody we care about. It's
With
like
our
we
own
can
parents.
say whatever we want to, but anybody else say anything against them,
Right.
and they're gonna have to deal with us. Like that's
Even if
just
what they say is true, we still don't want people to think that or to see that.
Yeah.
And so like we automatically have this sense of duty that it's up to us to defend them, even if they're horrible to us or whatever.
Yeah.
No matter who
There's
the person is.
a good example of that is in the Andy Griffith Show. There's a particular episode, I think it's Ellie for Counsel, but where some of the guys were mad at Barney for something, and one of the guys is calling him a weak-kneed yellow weak-kneed, yellow-livered turncoat or something like that. And Andy's like, now, don't let your tempers flare. If Barney had to sign that petition, they just got in their hundreds made somewhere else.
Oh my goodness.
Ain't no count, get on him, whatever. Barney's like, thanks, Andy. And he went, it's okay, turncoat.
It's so true. It's
Now
one
you
thing
got
for
to
us
let-
to be able to. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I just noticed
one
that
thing-
all throughout the movie, that being like the kind of starting point, because like he defended his dad, and he's like, even at that very moment, we see him defending his dad, deciding to go to work instead of doing that. And even like, because he lied and said that his dad never missed Christmas. Like that was the one day a year that he didn't miss Christmas. And you see a scene later on where even Catherine kind of points that out, and she's like, seems to me like your dad misses a lot of Christmas because of work.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know?
I think Peter wasn't intentionally lying there. I think he had it idealized in his mind.
He had like this,
think-
and that's like an actual trauma response.
Yeah.
Where people who are going through trauma, they try and reimagine what it was really like.
Mhm.
Well, and it's kind of a sign of abuse in a way, because
Yeah,
and I'm not
it is.
saying that his dad was intentionally abusive, but when somebody is manipulative of you, they can convince you of something that isn't true. And that becomes the reality in your brain, although that's not the actual reality. So
Yeah.
that's actually kind of a sign of some abuse right there, and some trauma, like you said.
And not only that,
but
and
I think
whenever you are at a young age, like I can't remember a whole lot from certain ages. I can kind of get glimpse here and there. So I can even kind of see that being like an added on top of that thing, where it's like he can remember a lot of it, but there's a lot of things that that's not really completely all there. It's like he can only get like little glimpses, little slivers of his memory from back that long ago.
well,
'Cause
and you
even
tend
I
to
do
try
that.
to block out the stuff you don't like.
Yeah,
too.
that's also a trauma response, blocking things out, acting as if it never even happened, or you can't even remember it or see it. And that even tries to make you feel like, oh, well, maybe I made it up,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but you didn't. Your brain and your body's response to that abuse, even though it wasn't any kind of intentional abuse, happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I really liked about this movie was that the word destiny came up multiple
Yeah.
times, and just at
Yeah.
different levels, because Arlene says destiny is a false construct. Peter says, really? I was really kind of rooting for that one. like I
Yeah.
was hoping one thing that I could believe in was actually real.
Yeah.
One thing that I was holding on to was actually gonna pull through for me, and you're just like pulling that rug out from under me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
but only for it to be like, obviously, in the end, obviously, it's true. Destiny does happen, at least in this movie. And like how they do all of it, I'm telling you, it's so mind blowing.
It
Mhm.
is.
So,
Another funny scene, it's when they are back at Peter's house and Catherine says, we need a huddle. Peter's like, I love a good huddle. And Catherine's like, you're not invited to the huddle.
a lot of people telling him to get out, and he's like steady getting closer to them because he wants to be a part of the huddle. And then she finally turns around, she's like, get out.
Oh,
And he's like,
Go
first
make
of all,
yourself
this is
at
how you
home.
can tell. He's like, this is my house. He's like,
Yeah.
she literally says, make yourself at home. He's like, well, it's kind of my home. So
She's like, see how easy it was? Like- okay, but can we also mention how cute it was that when they came back, Roy was sitting there watching A Christmas Carol?
that was funny. So we
I
cannot
still,
go
like,
by.
wonder, though, like, what happens in the in between? Because they only do one a year. So it's like, what do they do in the meantime? Like, what is that
Research.
Oh,
Research, because remember, they had when they came back from Scrooging Susan, they got their assignment for the next year, and they were given folders to research. So they would be researching
Yeah.
these people all year and figuring out their objective and how to go about it in that meantime.
And which
Yeah.
is so crazy because, like, if they were doing their research that whole entire time, you would think that they would figure out that of like who his grandparents were, about that
Yeah.
Betsy was his grandmother. Because you could just,
Mhm.
I don't know, like, maybe that was just like,
I think
something I didn't-
Catherine was the only one who didn't
No.
know, because obviously,
which makes you kind of wonder, which obviously we know in the end why she didn't know as much as she did versus what future and past knew. Because of like the fact that, you know, the big bombshell at the end, which I'm not going to disclose until we get to the end. I'm trying to be good here
Yeah.
and not skip. But like, because like even I kind of I remember the research part. But I'm just talking like, because obviously when you work, yeah, you're like you have your job and you have from this time to this time. But I'm just thinking like, what else do they do like in their free time? Like whenever they're not researching, because they have to make that research last the whole year. And obviously, when you're researching someone's entire life, I can understand it would take a long time. But I kind of just thought about like, what do they do? Like, what is it like? Like, you know, how that is. It would be kind of cute, kind of gonna get a glimpse of what's
well, and
going
if you think about it, they would each only be researching their part. Arlene would only be researching his
Yes,
past. He
exactly.
would not be researching his present. Catherine would only be researching his present, not his past or his future. Obviously, Roy would be researching his future, not his present or his past. So
Yeah.
it's like,
that just kind of makes
what
you like, so the workload is kind of getting a little bit smaller. And I almost and honestly, like for the whole present situation, it's like, what part of his present is she allowed to look at? Because a part of his present is going to be in the past, and a part of his present is going to be in the future. So it's like, is she just like stalking him every day, like trying not to get caught?
Oh,
Like,
goodness.
what is going on?
And speaking
well,
of
that wouldn't work either, because if he saw her the year before and then he could remember her, he would be able to see her.
And she's
And
like walking around looking like a spy with like
we need
dressed in
answers to
black.
this.
yeah.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, how do you do research as being the ghost of Christmas present when you're not allowed to, like, especially with her knowing that he could see her. But like, you know, because like, and even like, and like the whole present thing is like, okay, what part of his present is she allowed to know? Because like a part of it is going to be his past, is eventually going to turn to be his past, and the part of it's his future. So it's like,
And speaking of Catherine taking Peter to the present, I have to mention a few of these moments from, I think, the first time she takes him to the present. You know, they're talking about Charles Dickens and how A Christmas Carol came to be. And then he says, "Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about who was that woman who totally ghosted me."
I did totally ghost you. Literally.
I also love
quick jump back before we keep going. One thing that I loved, after the huddle, when Catherine and Peter go to the present, when Arlene is talking to Roy, and she mentions the fact that there was a picture of Catherine on a table at the Frog Hollow Angel when they went back to Peter's
yeah,
past.
she almost saw it.
And she says if she realizes how it all fits and starts asking questions, I just don't want her to get hurt. This isn't about her. It's not about any of us. We're here to do a job, and that's all. That's all, right, Roy? It's like all is as it should be. But I love the fact that she, at that point, because you have to think, at this point, she doesn't know the future. She only knows the past. So it's like she only knows this part of it. So I don't think, although I think she knows it's, or at least partially knows it's about Catherine.
Which is also so crazy, is like some of it kind of contradicts itself, because like in the end, she was the one that revealed that it was always going to be this.
I'm almost wondering if she more just kind of figured it out at that point. If she kind of had an inkling, and at this point she's like, okay, this is the only other answer here, you know. Because that was one thing that Catherine said to her. She was like, Arlene, you can Scrooge anybody. And I just watched you dance in circles. I did not dance in circles trying to figure this out. You know, so I mean, it's like, I think she's kind of figuring some of it out as she goes.
Yeah.
At that point. But yeah, the whole him wondering who that woman was that ghosted him, that was hilarious.
This line was also funny. It was when Peter was talking about his grandparents' vision of turning the street into a place for everyone. And then they go on to talk about her grandmother and how she would always like put on her makeup and then listen to stories on the radio. And she says, I'm not sure if you know what that is. It's kind of like a TV, but without the picture. Do you mean like a podcast? What? I don't know if you know what that is. I know what that is.
I know what it is. Modernize it a little bit.
Even though we do both, we do the visual and the audio.
True.
But yeah, I kind of like giggled because I was like, oh goodness.
Yeah.
Like, we definitely know what that is.
I loved their laugh in that moment. That was like
Yes.
so priceless.
Right.
I know what that is.
Yeah, I love when he says, you know, this kind of feels like the moment where I would say that you're really funny and cool, and I'd like to buy you a drink sometimes. She's just like, come on, Peter, there's more to see, you know, because you can totally see them falling for each other, and yet they both know they can't.
Right.
Like, they're trying not to, but you can totally see them falling for each other. And then, of course, they go, I think the next place is to his mother's house.
Which is also kind of goes back to how she said, like, this isn't about, like, the how he was, like, she was, goodness, how Marlene said that she didn't want her, it's like, she kept figuring things out and figuring where it leads, that she just didn't want her to get hurt. And so that continues to kind of like, you really do think that due to everything that was being said, everything that was being done, that it was pointing to Catherine being his grandmother.
Yeah. The writing was so good.
Yeah. It was, because like she never mentioned being married. She never mentioned having a kid. None of that. But then again, she didn't exactly have a whole lot of time to actually say anything about her, because he even asked her about herself. Yeah. And she didn't really give him an answer. And so it was like, but you would, you know, and like, it kept kind of getting a little more confusing. But then again, I guess if you have a baby at a really young age, and like you die whenever they were really young, you wouldn't really think to imagine what they looked like whenever they got older. Because obviously, whenever she does meet Peter's dad, there was never anything. And whenever she even got to go to the past and see what would be her husband, there was no real like anything there either. Like obviously, you wouldn't. You know, obviously the part of her dying so young, if this was her, she wouldn't really think of them as her husband, her child, her grandchild. Yeah. So, but that like, I kept abandoning the thought though. I will say this, I kept abandoning the thought because I'm like, there's too many missing puzzle pieces here for her to be the grandmother. And plus there's way too many like cute couple nuances up in here. Like y'all are gonna fix to make it really freaky up in here if she ends up being the grandmother.
I also loved when they have a conversation by the Christmas tree. You know, she finds him standing by it. Yeah. And that's his hiding spot.
That's his grumpy place.
And they see the snowfall, and then I think Arlene and Roy like snap them back to, you know, Peter's house, and then they get back to where they were, you know, a few minutes after. And I don't have written down what Peter said, but Catherine says, "You can't flirt with me."
Yeah. I love before that happened, before they got snapped back, when they went to his mother's house, and you know, he's seeing he had told his mother that he wouldn't make it for Christmas dinner or whatever. And so when they show up there, he's like, I had a feeling we were coming here. She went, oh, okay. Well, why don't I just go? You can Scrooge yourself. He's like, no, I just, you know. Again, total couple vibes right there.
Exactly.
Expert.
So I kept debating the fact that maybe she's like, well, maybe like there's no way she's gonna end up being his grandmother, because like that's a lot. There's like a lot of flirting, a lot of chemistry. Like, please Lord no.
Also,
there was also the conversation, he had asked her like how she died, but she ignored that question. And later on, she said, "You don't remember how you die. That part's blank." And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But however it happened, I didn't know it was coming. I wasn't sick or anything. And I really thought that I was going to do great things with my life. I just thought that I had lots of time to do them. But it's like you said, you never know when something is ending until it's over. And I think for me, that really resonated just because of like losing my mom so suddenly this year. And just like, none of us thought that day that's what was going to happen.
No.
She's
Mhm.
talking 1 minute and she's out the next. It's like, just out of the blue, unexpected, so I think that part really resonated with me for that.
Yeah. And especially for someone young too, especially when like, because you hear so many people who die on like one of the big things that everyone, I don't know if it happens like in y'all's, but one thing that everybody kind of like, there is this feeling of dread on graduation nights a lot of times because it happens a lot to teenagers on graduation nights. They end up getting in car crashes or whatever,
Because
and they
they're
end up
drunk.
dying on the night of their graduation. And you hear it all the time with people who are really young dying. They're like they had so much left to do. They had so many more things to go and do and get to do and be a part of and live.
Yeah.
And
And
it's very true.
and like prom is another one. I mean, it didn't happen at my school, but like, underage drinking
and not even just that.
Or
sometimes
decisions.
It's just like, it's just like, and sometimes it's not even with just drunk driving. It's just like something like just crazy happens. Just like a fluke. Sometimes just like an out of nowhere fluke happens sometimes too. And it's like, and it happens a lot. And it tends to happen like on prom nights or homecoming or graduations. Like these young kids are die somehow.
Partying.
Most of the time it is car wrecks, and most of the time it is because of a drunk driver or just something happening with the car, hydroplaning, blah, blah, blah. But that's one of the things that like I frequently hear, like on people posting things on Facebook or obituaries or people just talking about that person. They're like, they were so young, they still had so much more to do, so much more to like to be a part of. And that's another thing is like another thing that's kind of traced in there is like you don't know just how much good you are doing until it's already done, or unless someone tells you how much of an impact. Like for instance, like if someone were to come to you and tell you how much of an impact, until that happened, you would have no idea that you made that impact on them because you can't see the good that you do until it's done, until you see the ripple effect of it. And unfortunately, she never got to see the ripple effect that happened the night that she died.
Yeah. Oh,
This one's a heartstrings.
Yeah.
For sure.
a little
For sure.
moment of levity, the carousel ride with the two of them when they were talking about the other girl that he liked but she didn't like him back.
Rachel, yeah.
And he waves to the
Whenever they
guy.
brought her back, and then when they brought her back and she was like separated from him, I almost kind of thought, okay, this is how they're going to do the whole situation if she was his grandmother. And like, okay, she's gonna like one of the things is gonna like they're gonna end up being together since like they can't obviously be together because that's his grandmother.
Or like honestly, my thought too was if this was gonna be a case of them not actually getting together because she is a ghost and there's no way for her to so
Exactly.
This is his future and she was just the one that opened his heart again, so
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting that. Honestly,
Yeah.
so
He
that was
talked
another.
about how he kind of closed himself off from love because of all the things that he went through because of not only her but everything else that was going on in his life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also,
yeah.
when
You notice we don't get to see Peter's future though.
nope.
No. But technically we do. Technically we do though, because their future is together.
But not at that particular moment we don't.
Yeah.
in his Scrooging, we do not see his future, which again proves that it's not about him.
Yeah.
It's
Or
about
his dad.
her.
It was always about her. Yeah. Which
I
also,
also
when that got reviewed, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Especially when obviously we come to the pinpoint where we find out that they were never supposed to Scrooge Peter at all. They were supposed to be Scrooging his dad.
mhm.
And like, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes obviously more sense because he is a Scrooge.
I knew Scrooging God.
Speaking of that moment, you know, they go back to Hartford. So I believe this is the second time. And
Yeah.
Peter is like about to walk in his apartment, and then Catherine just shows up, and then it looks like he's talking to himself in the hall, and that woman is just like standing there watching.
Well, I love when they're trying to figure out like how they're going to do this, because Charlie, the one kind of in charge, giving them their assignments and whatever, obviously she's freaking out. She was like, in all times this has never happened, blah 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 blah.
It's like they're having a field day.
Yeah, she's like, I got you an extension. You have 9 hours. You have to sundown, but he's not going to be able to hear you or see you, and you're not going to be able to take, so they're trying to figure out how they're going to do this. And Arlene says, I only see one option. He likes you. We need him. Simple. We've got, she's like, he's not even going to remember us. And they were like, well, he remembered you before. So, but yes, I love that scene where he's like talking to her and he's like, you seem a little stressed. And she's like, really? He's like, Catherine, calm down, take a breath. Why are you here?
Yeah. And then when he's with his mom and he's baking something, and then she appears again, and like he's almost yelling,
like, get out of here. What are you doing?
And she's like, who are you talking to? And then he makes
Like,
the excuse with the earbuds.
These things keep just getting smaller and smaller. I need to go take them out. I'll be right back.
Oh, that was another funny thing though. When I mentioned earlier about her being like, oh, well, I'll just leave and you can Scrooge yourself, was when she was trying to explain to him in the hallway there, when she's trying to explain to him like why she's there, what they need, whatever. He's like, yeah, I get it, She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were the expert. What's the scene in the Bill Murray movie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yes, I love how he like just tries to calm her down in that scene in the hallway. That was like one of my top favorite moments of this movie. It was just so good. So good.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, I'm like, how are they going to get him to kind of like help then Scrooge his dad without it being like, obviously having to go through the whole thing of like him being like, you're crazy. Cause like, I would have to imagine he would say something that would be like, but then I didn't think that we were ever going to figure out what, like the whole situation with the picture and all that and how that all came about. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That I loved so much. I loved the backstory when we finally started getting more into her past, which is technically both of their pasts.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you were mentioning earlier.
Before we get to that part though, how
Susan Crane meeting Susan Crane. Even the handsome one with the ascot.
I don't know why I forgot about that part because that was hilarious.
Cool.
I love how she tells him, talk about the elves, mention the elves, and you're like, and then like that happens. He's like, and you're in. Go ahead.
In for the kill, pretty boy. I'm telling you, Arlene had like the best lines.
She did. But I think it was just like her whole demeanor and how she was more of like a little bit of the more grumpy, more let's get to this, let's get over with types. That made it even more funnier when she said those kind of lines.
Well, because she's tender-hearted, even though she kind of pretends not to be.
She's got a rough exterior. She's inside. She's all mushy. Yeah. But I love the ascot part. And I love how he got like all like puff chested because like of that happened. He's like, okay.
Yeah. And we finally
Yeah.
get
they never
to
get to, because I would think, because they even talk about how they don't know the outcome of what happens after they Scrooge someone. So like Susan was like their first person that they actually got to go back and see what happens to her after they get done Scrooging her. And like for her to like, so they get to see like how how she describes them and how she like thought about what they thought about them, and then for him to actually find out that she liked him or thought he was cute was so cute.
Yeah.
Nicole, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we finally get to the moment when Arlene takes both Peter and Catherine to their past. Betsy
This is
Wilkins.
definitely my favorite. This is definitely my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah. Betsy Wilkins was Peter's grandma, as we've been saying, and Catherine's best friend. She and Betsy grew up together. She used to meet Betsy every night after her shift at the Rudy Tooty so that they could walk home together.
Yeah.
So
And
cute.
seeing that moment when obviously she was there with I love when Peter's like, Grandpa Bob, you
Bob, you rascal.
Yeah.
I loved that so much.
Like
And
him
that thing
getting to
is, like,
see how they met, and he just like, y'all are a
yes.
mess.
And I love that we actually get to kind of find out more about his grandma, because we like Peter was always talking about how much he idolized his grandpa too. Like it was always his grandfather that we were always looking at. And obviously they talk about how she died whenever he was really young. So obviously he doesn't get has a whole lot of memories of his grandmother.
Yeah.
But to later find out that one of the reasons why his grandfather was the way that he was because of Catherine and because of Betsy. And like their impact on his life that night.
Yeah.
I loved seeing Catherine and Betsy walk home and giving the food to the homeless. That was really sweet.
Even though Betsy was kind of like, you can't give them everything.
Yeah.
You know, like trying to tell her, like, yes, what you're doing is great, but you can't just give them until you have nothing. Because then what's going to happen for you, kind of thing. Without actually not necessarily saying that, but I knew what she was trying to tell Catherine, like, you know, yes, what you're doing is great, and I love that you do this, but you've got to also take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love.
Sorry,
I keep interrupting.
It's okay. It's so hard to figure out when someone's going to cut off.
I was just going to say, I also love and thought it was funny when Catherine is about to leave with the blankets, you know, to give the homeless, and she says something along the lines to Betsy, like, you know, don't get yourself into any trouble. And Betsy says, do I ever? Or have I ever?
Yeah.
Well, she says, don't get in too much trouble while I'm gone.
Yeah, don't get into too much trouble.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah. Because I mean, you know what's about to happen.
I did, but at the same time, I didn't. I didn't think it was going to happen to her as soon as she walked out the door. That I was not expecting.
No, that made me.
I was like,
yeah,
she got hit by a car.
Yeah, and one thing that was interesting to me is that Catherine didn't actually see it. Because you know, sometimes in a movie like that, they'll show like, you know, kind of the extra
out of body experience.
Yes. So I thought it was interesting that we didn't actually see that. I mean, I'm grateful, don't take me wrong. I don't want to see it, but at the same time, but I thought the conversation was kind of funny there. Not funny, but kind of funny. When Peter says, you died on Christmas, and she said, yeah, we all did. And Arlene says, that's how it works. But you didn't catch that, huh? It's like, no, you know, because it like goes back to him being such an expert on the Christmas Carol thing, and she just has to throw that in there. But you didn't catch that, huh?
Yeah, but it makes sense, because like you would think the Christmas past, present, and future would, you know, their whole lives after that point is wrapped around Christmas, which is also a little, like, I would feel like a little bit more of a salt on the wounds, because like for the rest of their lives they pretty much had to be involved around Christmas, and they died on Christmas.
But they don't remember how they died.
They don't really, exactly. They don't remember how they died. They just know when they died, and I think that kind of goes back to a nod of like her not actually again not witnessing that, like she finds out how she died, but she doesn't witness her death, which I think is just kind of going back to the nod and not being able to remember how she died.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love
Yeah.
when Catherine and Peter find the hidden note in the picture
Yeah.
frame
Yes.
from
yes.
Betsy.
I love when they go to take it to his dad, because obviously, they go on to visit Susan. Susan goes, sings at his dad's Christmas Eve party, trying to
Right.
soften him up so Peter can talk to him. They end up in an argument. Peter tells Catherine off, storms off. That's when they end up going back to Catherine's past.
Mhm.
And although, what was it that Arlene said right there, of something like, "I don't intend to be the first ghost to get someone institutionalized."
I think something
we're
like
talking
that.
about
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Um,
But
yeah,
by the way, and
but-
I saw this because you could just see the way that his dad was looking at Susan while she was singing. I'm like, okay, they're gonna end up together.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look
Yeah.
at anyone like that in a Hallmark movie and not end up together.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. But when they go to try to find his dad, and they're hunting him down, and she's like, "Is there anywhere that you know that he might be?" And he was like, "His grumpy place." So she goes, "He has a grumpy place? I thought that was just his resting state."
Yeah.
I loved that part. That was my favorite. That was
Agree with her.
definitely-
Yeah.
Oh man. But then
That
of course, like,
scene.
oh, I know. But again, destiny comes up, because I think it's Peter says, "Sounds like destiny," and Catherine says, "Maybe it is." When they're talking before he takes the note to his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and the conversation between Peter and his dad, I
Oh,
thought
my-
was really,
Mm.
because his dad is basically telling him, "Look, I had to worry all my life because of how my dad was. I had to worry. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I didn't know where I was going to get roller skates, or whatever." And he was like, "I never wanted you to have to worry about that." So his dad's heart was in the right place, which Peter always knew. He always knew his dad was not just a bad man. But I love the fact that Peter was like, "You're right. I never had to worry about that. And I'm so lucky for that. Like, thank you for that. But Dad, there are so many other people out there who do worry about it. So let's try to take care of them together." Like,
Yeah.
not saying let's just
like you can hit
know-
both stone. You can hit both birds with one stone by doing what Grandpa actually really did want the outcome to be.
Mhm.
It kind of makes you seem like yes, the grandfather should have done a little bit better with his finances in order to keep up what he was trying to do. But I think we
Right.
all understand you could try your hardest, but if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Or if some things just aren't as easy as said than done, and things like that. And I feel like especially when you're a kid, like his dad was at the time, you're not seeing everything. You know what I mean? There's certain things that we're not able to see what goes on with what were our intentions, or our parents' intentions, or someone else's intentions are. And that's kind of also something that's kind of threaded through here. Like, you don't, like, just like Peter didn't know his dad's intentions about certain things that was going on with why he was the way he was. Peter also didn't know how his dad viewed his dad's intentions, as far as like the Rudy Tooty and the the angels, the
Frog Hollow Angel.
Frog-Toed Angel, and everything. So I mean, that's also kind of weaved into there. But I actually didn't expect his dad. Well, I guess I should have, because like obviously having her picture on the table every year. But for him to actually know that was his mother's best friend that died really young. Like, I wasn't expecting him to actually remember that or say anything about that. So that was really cool that because that also kind of shows you that people, that you don't know who else going to remember you after you've gone.
Yeah. Am I the only one that when they showed the camera angle of Robert reading this note and the fire pit is like in the background, am I the only one that was concerned that he was going to throw that note?
Yes.
I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
Like, that was just the imagery I had in my head. I'm like, no.
I
That didn't
honestly
even
thought
cross
that
my
it was like,
mind.
'cause, like the embers that spark out of a fire. I thought one of them was gonna like catch onto the letter, and he wasn't even gonna be able to finish it all, or we were
Yeah.
never gonna find out what the end result was.
That
So, no,
didn't
you're
even
right.
cross my mind.
Yeah. But when I saw that though, that was what went in my head. I'm thinking, okay, there's a fire right here. He's not really receptive at this moment. I was half expecting him to like maybe start reading it and throw it away, or just not even read it and just throw it away, or whatever. Which of course would have been a lot worse than in SSD when Oliver threw away the letters from his dad in the trash can, and of course his dad, retrieved
They
those
both
letters.
went back to get them, but his dad got them first.
Yeah. But another thing, and this was sweet to me. We've heard Roy several times throughout this movie use the phrase "all is as it should be," which is in Betsy's letter, the speech that she had written.
Which is actually a nod towards how Catherine was. So, that's kind of what was sort of her motto too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also love how her name was Catherine Marley.
Right. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Very, very Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
I love when they're walking back, because Peter, obviously, he sees Catherine. She makes an impression on him for him to remember her from a 2-minute interaction. And a year later, he's still wondering, who was this woman?
Ghosted him.
Yeah, the one that ghosted him. And then, there's obvious attraction there. They're trying not to act on it, although I will be shocked I am shocked there was not a kiss at any point during that whole thing. But then, they go back after they are done Scrooging him, and he doesn't think he'll see her again. Well, then she shows up again. So it's like every time they think they're not going to see each other again, they end up seeing each other again. And at this point, when they bring him back home, and he's like, kind of, this really is it, isn't it? Like, we're really saying goodbye at this point. And I love when he says, I don't really understand what any of this means, but I did know this one very important thing, which is that you are somebody that I could love. And I think that you could love me too. Now that I know that's possible, I don't ever want to settle. And if I never feel this way again, then at least I felt it once with this really kind, funny, and beautiful ghost.
Oh,
Like, you could just tell he is so in love with her, because she had asked him, are you going to the carousel tonight? Because, the Ghost of Christmas Present gets the entire week of Christmas. So she goes a couple of days into his future, but not his actual future. And so they had been able to see that if he went to the carousel that night, he was going to run back into Rachel. And he's like, is this my future? And she's like, if you want it to be, so she asks him, are you going to the carousel? No, she's like, wait, no, don't answer that, because she doesn't want to know, because it's going to break her heart for him. So he's basically telling her at that point, now that I know what I could have with somebody, why would I settle for less than that?
Right.
Of course, the conversation between Roy and Catherine and Arlene after Peter walks in the house, and she's says, like, please tell me that by now you understand you are always the assignment.
Yeah.
And then he says, why would I take you to a future that you can already imagine? These last few lines to me, and I'll come, they were really impactful to me, but I'll come back to why. And then, she gets a quick glimpse into her possible future. She said, I can't have any of that. Why would you show it to me? He said, all I can tell you is that if you can see it, it must exist somewhere, but be brave enough to see where you want to go. So that to me kind of, I guess it just reminds me, and I think kind of all of us can relate to this as single young adults, that first of all, like for me, I grew up quite a tomboy. I was always a tomboy. And I don't know, I was probably teens maybe when we started getting around one of my dad's buddies a decent amount, and him and his sons always treated me like a lady. And I had never been treated that way before in my life. And I loved it. I soaked it up like a sponge. And I would get mad because my brother would not treat me that way. And he was like, I'll start treating you like a lady when you start acting like a lady. I'm like, well, it's hard to act like a lady when you're treating me like a guy. You know, like, what do you,
Yeah.
we've got to both do this at the same time here for this to work. But when you know what, for me, over the course of my life, seeing God make me hold out for something, wait on average 2 to 4 years at least past what time me or anybody else thought something should happen for it to happen, and for God to give us something. And this happened multiple times throughout my life. It always turned out so much better, much better than I could have imagined. So knowing that, and knowing promises God has made me about my future over the years, I'm like, why would, when people wonder why am I so picky, why will I not just go? They're like, it's just a date, you're not agreeing to marry somebody, like it's a free meal, just go, what's the problem? And I'm like, for me, when I know what God's promised me, why would I even waste my time or someone else's? Like, this is as much about them as it is about me. Why would I waste that when I don't feel like this is what God has for me?
Right.
So these last little bit of this movie really struck me with how much higher God's ways are than our ways, and his thoughts than our thoughts, and his, what's the verse about, eyes not seen nor ear heard, nor has entered into the mind of man the things that God has in store for him. And I might not have quoted that 100%, but it just, God has so much bigger and greater than our minds could imagine, or maybe not even bigger. There's the Lost and Bates song that sometimes God has smaller plans. It starts off with this verse about, this kid that all the way through school and college, whatever that, or like all the way through school, he's baseball star, he's getting a scholarship, he's, all this stuff. Life seems like it's going great. And he ends up in a car wreck, and he can't pitch anymore. He has to coach. And it's like, that seems so small. This girl that, she gets scholarship, goes to Harvard, gets her doctorate, she's a doctor. She comes back to her small town to run a free family clinic, but which seems so small compared to the great things that she could have done. And yet the two of them end up together, and it talks about their little girl on stage at the Christmas play and whatever. Sometimes God's plans might seem quote unquote smaller than what ours are, but they're always better. I don't care if they're bigger, smaller, different, same as what we have in mind. His is always better.
Well, and another thing that I really love about this, and obviously, like, I thought the same thing that you did, Kerri. It really did remind me so much about how God sees us in our lives, in our past, our future, our present, and how he can actually see all of it at the same time. He just, and he takes all of it. And, we have to remember that he's in control, and he's in our lives need to be in his hands, because he can do far better than what we can. Like you said, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His plans are better for us. And no matter how many times we try and put it in our hands, he will always have the better hand at doing it. And because there's been many times where I've questioned, like, am I just one of these people? Because there are people out there who haven't gotten married or never did get married. There's a few in our nursing home who never got married. They never had kids. And, and I often kind of have wondered, is that my future? Is that what's my life going to be? Like, because I'm 25 years old, never really had a serious boyfriend, never really had anything to really even go on, and I've even said to myself so many times, I'm like, if that is my future, then I know that God's got an even better plan for me. That means that he's got something better for me than to be a wife and a mother. And what can you do that's better than being a wife and a mother? You know what I mean? And, like going back to the Bates song that you were just describing, like, even though it seems so small, like the impact that those two together, especially not only apart, made on that community. The impact he made on those kids that he was coaching, the impact she made in the people's lives that she was helping, in her clinic. Even though it seems small to you, the impact is a whole lot greater than you will ever imagine, because you're not getting like the ghosts. You don't get an inward look at the inward look of what the impact you made on that person's life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do get the lucky chance of being able to have that person come to you and tell you how much of an impact you were on their life. But a lot of times you don't. And I feel like that's what I kind of took away from the movie, is that no matter how small it looks, I need to take on that situation, because the impact on other people that I do by doing that thing is far greater than the reward that I get from doing it. Whatever it is, money, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love when they get back to the Great Hall, I think is what it's called.
Great Unknown. Oh, yeah.
Well,
The Great Unknown.
the Great Unknown is the
yeah.
door she walks through. But
Yeah.
I love when they get back and Arlene's like, "Don't worry, Charlie, we cleaned up your mess."
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then Charlie says something about, you have no idea what it took, or the strings we had to pull for him to see you and even remember you.
Yeah. I love it when she says, "Tom, it's such a funny thing. It would be so much easier if it was linear. But as it is, sometimes we need to speed someone up or slow someone else down just to make sure that all souls are where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there." Which is true. Which is 100% true, because I have been in times of my life that literally made no sense, that were torture for me and my family. Like, I'm sorry, but it took us 4 years from the time we moved back to Georgia from Missouri to get a place of our own. We lived with Nana for like a year and a half, and then we rented a trailer for the rest of the time. We were miserable in that trailer. Absolutely miserable. And our landlady, bless her, she drove us out of our minds. Like, we'd known the family for years, but still, she drove us crazy. But us being there, I, without a shadow of a doubt, believe that was not for us. But there was a lot going on with her and with her husband's health and stuff. Like, he fell several times that she would have to come get my dad. He would go over there and help them. He had done work for this guy forever, so I mean, but it's like, I truly believe us being there was about her and what she needed in that period of time. I don't think it had anything to do with us. I think it was for her, and I think it was maybe even, I don't know, but maybe even for other people to see us going through such a hard time and still stay steadfast and holding on to our faith and not settling and whatever. Because I know I've done that with people. You never know who's watching your life. This movie is a perfect example of that. You never know who's watching your life. There is someone that I go to church with that I have said this multiple times. Watching this person stay steady. We're pretty close to the same age, so we're going through a lot of the same stuff in life right now. And watching this person stay steady and calm when nothing seems to be going right for years at a time, no matter what you're trying, you are putting in the work, you're putting in the effort, you're praying, you're seeking God, you're doing everything right, and nothing seems to be working. You don't seem to be making the progress that you felt like you should be making. It's like watching this person stay steadfast and keep calm and whatever has so many times helped me when I've been ready to fly off the handle, and I'm like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, So I truly believe that period of time was for that family. And again, who knows, maybe for other people watching our family, in that amount of time. But then of course we come to the line that I just love when Charlie goes, "Am I speaking kangaroo?"
Yeah.
Using that. I'm gonna start using that one.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
But I love her end, obviously. So she does make the decision to
Mhm.
go through the door of unknown,
Mm.
and we get back, and it's the
Rudy
redo.
Rudy
It's
Judy, yeah.
And we see her kind of walk in, she's looking around and
He
everything like
says,
that. And then
Peter
he
says,
comes in
he's
and
like, "Do I know you?"
he's like, "Do I know you?" And you
Yeah.
kind of wonder,
Okay, am
I
I
look
the-
really familiar.
Am I the only one who questioned at that moment? Did he actually know her? Or
yeah.
was he making this up? Like for just a minute, honestly, I thought
Just for a
he
minute
did
there,
not
I was wondering.
remember. Yeah. I didn't think
I
he
remember
remembered
they
any
were
of
gonna
this.
have to
and
like
they were gonna have
start
to
over from scratch. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And then of
that
course
they
we found
did
out he was
remember.
playing.
I love that they did end up remembering each other and everything. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, did she just kind of appear out of nowhere? Does she have like a place to live? Does she have like a car?
I don't know.
Like, what was going what was gonna happen after, since like she died like in like the back in the day.
Mhm.
Her apartment building that she lived in with her grandma wasn't even there anymore. So it kind of made you think like what was gonna happen, but like the outside part of it. But then obviously we got to see that they did exactly what his grandparents and her best friend wanted to do with the Rudy Tooty and everything.
Yeah.
And then for them to place Betsy's Betty
picture.
her picture on there and call her the Frog Hill Angel was so like heartfelt.
I do
Mhm.
have one question though. It kind of confused me. I don't know if I'm just like overthinking this, and I don't know if this makes sense, but if Betsy died instead of Catherine, then how would Peter's dad be there? And even
No,
Peter.
I don't think that she died instead of Catherine. I think that they pretty much just, because of everyone that pretty much knew who Catherine was and how she died was gone, they just kind of skipped over that part. Because
Okay.
if you think about it, nobody that was alive when Catherine died was no longer alive.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay.
So they probably just
yeah.
went and instead made it to where everyone, and plus they had, I guess they had the power to make them forget and remember. They had the power to kind of make everyone forget. Like, for instance, because technically Peter's dad knew who Catherine was because of the picture.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
it kind of makes me feel like maybe they made him forget who Catherine was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
see what
instead
y'all are
replaced
saying.
Catherine with,
Yeah, that would have been a little awkward.
right? Because technically he would have been the only one alive that knew who she was, even though he never really knew her.
Yeah, okay,
So-
that makes
Oh,
makes
man,
sense,
that's
but I wish
in my brain. In my brain, everyone that really truly knew who Catherine was or was alive when she was alive are no longer alive. See, Peter's dad
Yeah.
wasn't alive whenever she was alive. She died before Peter's
Okay,
dad
yeah.
was born.
yeah.
He only knew her because of the picture and the
Right.
stories of obviously hearing from her dad, his dad.
Okay, that
So
I
I feel like they
understand now.
probably just used their ghost magic to like make him forget who Catherine was.
okay, I get
But
it.
I do not think
sense.
that Betsy replaced Catherine by dying instead of Catherine. I think
Okay,
she
for-
died just the way that she
No.
did.
Just crazy
Yeah.
thought in my mind. Sorry about that, y'all.
No, I can totally see where you thought that though. I totally can see where you thought that.
I was
But
like,
no.
wait, this would be
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Like, how would his dad be there and even him,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
because he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Neither one
No,
of
I
them would
totally agree.
exist.
And we sure wouldn't be seeing Catherine and Peter kissing. Just saying.
I do like that moment before it shows the Christmas party and he says, "Are you lost? Or you're not looking for anyone?" "No, I found exactly who I'm looking for." And then they share the kiss.
I love it when he's like, "What do you think?" And she was like, "I think it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of fun, and it's probably our destiny. So I think we should do it." Like, and it just kind of comes back to the destiny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
I
There's
think
just so
he-
much I love about this movie.
I think he picked her up when he kissed her, which that was really cute.
A little bit, yeah.
I
think
know,
she-
right?
yeah. It was
I
cute.
know. There are certain things that are just like heart melting to watch when a guy kisses a girl. Number one to me is the hand on the face. Oh man, that one gets me every time. Like every time that one gets me. And another one is when they pick them up.
Yeah.
It
course, that
kind of
kinda goes-
reminds me the feet
Go ahead.
thing, like when when a girl gets kissed by
Princess
a guy, and,
Diary.
like, it kind of reminds me of the foot thing.
Yes. The pop.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to repeat yourself, Morgan. I know what
And
you
they-
said, but you're gonna have to
they're going to be making the third one. They've officially announced Princess Diaries 3.
Woohoo!
That also love the Princess Diaries just as much as we do.
Yeah. Those
But
are
no,
cute.
I agree. Like that's some of the like the hand on the face, the obviously the lifting them up part. Those
Mhm.
always get me. Those always get me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So out of 5 stars, I would definitely say 5.
5. Hands
Is
down.
Morgan giving it 10 again?
Not enough.
Hands down 10.
Yeah. It was a very
wasn't
good one.
it wasn't a normal Hallmark movie. It wasn't just
Yeah.
about the romance. It wasn't just about Peter and Kat's relationship and how they get together and all of that. It wasn't anything about that really at all. It was about their own past, present, and future and how that all was correlating and how much their life and their death impacted not only each other's life, but other
Mhm.
people around them and their lives. And like how much it really makes everyone kind of understand, like, hey, even when you feel like you have no purpose on this earth, even if you don't feel like you're not making a difference, you are. Like just simply because of Catherine and how she lived her life and then died, the fact that she died doing what she loved to do, which was help people, that made such a strong impact on Peter's grandparents to make them
Yeah.
do this big, huge, extravagant, like really,
To live their whole
Well,
lives differently.
yeah, it made their whole lives different. But not only that, they even did like this big leap of faith by buying all of that stuff for the Foggy Hill Angel. Like I had to imagine that would have been really crazy to do back in those days, especially as it is now. So for them to do that and them honor Catherine like that and do it because of her impact on them, just that in that one night, because I know she probably impacted Betts more than that because they grew up together. But to also do it for him, whenever he literally only had like a 5, like not even a full minute conversation with Catherine before she passed away, for her to have such an impact on him too, was, it just goes to show you that you can't wrap yourself up in how you see things, because how you see things isn't how it really is. Because we can get in our own heads about things and completely miss what's really going on.
Mhm.
And it just kind of goes
Yeah.
back to seeing how God has a better view of everything than we do.
Mhm. I love the song. I think it's in Joseph, Prince of Dreams. For you know better than I, you know the way. Don't need to know why, for you know better than I. Great songs in that movie, which it was made by the same people that made Prince of Egypt, so duh, but yeah. Such a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good one.
I just love that this movie wasn't just about the romance. It was about something so much deeper than that. So I love that Homework's starting to do that again.
Is it just-
It's,
Is it just me, or could that one have almost been a like Miracles of Christmas movie? Not quite,
Yeah.
not quite,
but
yeah.
almost. Yeah, it's like so borderline. I would have expected it to have been one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Anything else about this one before we wrap it up?
No.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
I think so. And we will be back soon with another movie recap. And we hope y'all are enjoying these Christmas movies as much as we are. Obviously, there are a lot more coming out than what we're covering on the podcast, but there is no way we can keep up with that many movies.
No, maybe we can do a throwback every once in a while.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. But anyway, all right, guys. Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll be back again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.